So you can see that the backlight on the radio has gone off. And so I have to push any of the buttons to kind of wake it back up. And then I'll hold OK. And then I'm going to go down to function setup, down to endpoints, and then hit OK. The weapon is channel 3, so the stick up and down is channel 3. So I'm going to hit OK down to channel 3, and I'm going to set the bottom of this travel first. So as soon as the bottom's out, I'll start reducing that number. And I want it to just barely get down there. And then on the top side, I want it to, so the arrow will move over automatically when I get far enough up. But, so I can, 86, so now I'm at the top and I can start to bring that down, and I want to get it, I don't know if you can tell that as I go down on this, so I didn't go all the way up with that yet because it was pushing on it so hard. So now I'm okay with it just barely getting there. And so it'll have plenty of power and stroke, even like that. So I'm at 86 and 38. And then on the bottom side, it is, I turn that down another 2. So then you have to, all of the weird things in radios and setting things up, you have to hold cancel to save those positions. So that's down and that's up. We'll be going back in because I can see I need to reverse stuff later, but it's good to get that kind of initial setup done. So now I can go ahead and turn off the bot, turn off the radio. At this point where I can still hold on to the motors, I always like to install the wheels at this point. With the new wheels, it's so much easier, it's a lot less important. So installing the new wheels, you do want to go ahead and put the tires on the wheels themselves, and it makes life a little easier to go ahead and put the collets on at this point. So you can see that there's a chamfer on one side of the collet that will go into the wrench, and you're going to turn these on just enough so that the collet stays on there. Don't tighten it up yet. So again, tapered into the tool and get just a turn on there so that the collet stays with the wheel. We have the new spacers, so because all the wheels are made to fit into the full variety of bots, we don't have caps, we don't have stops on them to keep them from going on too far, and because they hold on so well, they tend to stay in position. So you'll notice that the motor has a D flat, the wheel has a D flat. So they should push on pretty easily. The goal was to make sure that even elementary school kids could easily push those on. You want to make sure that it's not on so far that it is binding the tire tightly to the spacer. It'll touch it, but should still turn smoothly. And then you just take the tool, hold the tire still, and go ahead and tighten these on. You do want to make these quite tight. The tighter you make them, the harder the wheel is to get off. The intent was that even elementary school kids could get it tight enough that it was extremely hard to knock the wheel off, but it is good to go ahead and tighten them up. They should be pretty much impossible to damage the wheel. Don't go nuts, but you can see that that's on there quite well. So again, same thing on the other side. It's much easier if you set the D flat on the motor. Just turn it with your fingers so that D flat is up. Note the D flat on the wheel. Put the wheel spacer against the chassis and slide the motor on, slide the wheel on to the motor. I do like to give this a few turns, and kind of let this move around enough so that it's not pushing hard. I want the tire touching the spacer, but not like pushing hard on the spacer. So that seems a pretty good spot. I'll go ahead and snug the collet down with the spacer still in there. And then you can get a better grip on the tire by taking the spacer out, and then hold the tire and tighten that up. So those are quite well attached. At this point, go ahead and put the top armor on, and then we're actually done. So the should be quite obvious. Right armor goes on the right, left armor goes on the left. So often it's good to start these with hand tools, but for expediency, I'm gonna go ahead and use this. And again, if you are using an electric, don't go too fast. Really try and turn it at about the same speed that you would be doing by hand. There you have it. Go ahead and put the screws into the plow at this point. We'll go ahead and do a kind of a final setup and show you some radio setup things. So go ahead and turn the radio on, and the radios come set up for a different battery that's in here, so you need to set the voltage. So hold OK, go into system. It'll go down to RX setup, hit OK again, go down to RX battery, hit OK again, and then you have to use OK to get down to high. So you can't raise these above what's below them. So you have to raise the high, then raise the alarm, then raise the low. We set the highs all the way to 8.5. Most 2S LiPos top out at 8.4, but high voltage LiPos like ours can actually go up to 8.6. Set the alarm at 7.4, that's 3.7 volts per cell. Where we want them, and we'll set the low to 6.8. You don't ever want to see that hit the bottom. And again, hold cancel to save. Cancel to get out of that one. Now, if you want to name it, go to model name. This is an Overthrow. Obviously, you can name it whatever you would like, but just use the up and down arrows to put in the name that you would like it to show for this particular model. And you have capitals and lowercases available. And cancel to save. So now when we go out, I'm going to go ahead and raise this all the way up. Well, actually, I don't have to, because it's so easy to get to the switch now. So what we want to see is that with the plow all the way down, it should just barely lift the chassis off the ground. So I'm gonna wake it up, hold OK, go to function setup, go down to endpoints, go down to channel 3, and with this all the way down, so I just saw the chassis raise. So I'm watching the edge of that chassis, and I want it to, as I go all the way down, to just barely lift that chassis off the floor to make sure that the plow is what's touching. So that gives you the good ground game. And then all the way up, it just barely, actually when it flops, it touches the paper clip. So the endpoints are good. That's where I want them. Now, does it drive? So just forward, go forward, left and left. So that's good. So it happened to be that it's all arranged. I needed to reverse it. Now would be the time. So you can see that it does self-right with authority. So if you want to do the backflip, you got to give it like kind of a back forward while you hit the flipper, and it'll do a backflip right in place. And then just hitting the flipper, it jumps right back onto the wheels. So there you have it. There's your overthrow. And your radio's set up. You're good to go. If it's too fast, particularly in turning, you can always get that to be quiet. Go down to dual rates, and you can set a normal and a sport mode. So as channel 1 is steering, and you can verify that by going to display and see there's channel 1 moving, so I know channel 1 is steering. If I go down to dual rates, if I want to turn down that steering, I can go to rate and turn this down to 90 maybe. If I want to start moving on less motion there, that's the expo. So I'll actually go down to expo and I'll crank in about, let's see how 24 does on expo. So now it starts moving closer to mid stick, and it doesn't turn too fast. Might take that down a little bit more. Could be with new students this weekend. Now if I hit sport, it goes back to 100. And what I'll probably do is in sport, I'll bring my expo up so that it's still good and sharp right off center stick. And again, I'll hold cancel to save that. Back in switches up, and then what we often do if we're going to be in class is we'll rubber band all the switches up. It just avoids a lot of confusion. So there we have it.